Everyday me, everyday God. Harnessing winds of change. Yesterday, I was standing watching some wild winds churn up the ocean, kind of heightening water and crashing waves into rocks. I loved it. I love the wind blowing through my hair. I love the salt spray on my face. I love the powerful feeling of the wind force coming off an ocean. I found myself bracing myself against the wind. When our children were about 4 or 5, we would all love to go out onto the breakwater of the harbor and in a storm. And we loved the waves coming and crashing over us. And the girls were dressed in their little red waterproof suits from head to toe. And we would run out into the breakwater laughing and giggling. And they loved to see whether or not the wind was strong enough to hold them up. So they would lean back into it. And sometimes the wind was strong enough to hold them up. And I sometimes thought, I'd like to be able to rest in a storm like that, just to lean into the wind and rest there like they did. As I was standing on the shore, I noticed some seagulls. And I noticed they were lining up in a very strange formation. They were kind of directly above the shoreline, and they were in formation like soldiers on a military parade, all facing the same direction, all the same height above me, beaks and head to the front, right into the headwind, right into the force of the wind. And they looked so orderly. They looked so calm. They were floating or flying. I don't know what the word is, but they were just kind of resting on the wind. And I thought, no flapping around, none of the usual squawking, just quietly, with the faintly discernible movement of their pinions, their flight feathers, but calm. They looked totally in charge of their bird bodies in the fierce winds. They seemed to have harnessed the energy of the wind and to take it and give them the ability to effortlessly float there in the middle of the fierce wind. That very same wind that I was finding myself having to brace against. It was as if they were resting there while I was bracing. And I thought, how is it that their little bird bodies are so calm when my big body is bracing? It made me think how I'm finding myself bracing against the strong, storming winds blowing all around us in these times. Those winds of social change, winds of economic change, winds of medical health change, winds of political change, all around us. All these stormy changes are causing me to brace myself. And when I find myself bracing against the storms of life, it's not a pretty sight. It's not calm. It's not orderly, not like the seagulls. Rather, I find myself kind of with my brain exploding into 100 directions all at once, 100 thoughts of panicky response. Finding that I feel like I need to fix something, or I need to change something, I need to do something. And all the while losing energy with every flail. No longer trusting in my ability to fly, or trusting in God's ability or presence in the storm. So how could I change my panicky flailing into gull-like harnessing of the wind power until I can lean into it and rest on the winds of the storm? Well, first, I think we need to develop flight feather skills, pinion skills, skills of quietness, skills of trust, skills of believing. Secondly, How can I change my panicky flailing? Well, I think by practicing those flight skills, practicing those flights daily, flight skills of mind, flight skills of heart, flight skills of spirit, so that I can create effective flight movement for those ever-changing winds around us. Thirdly, we need to strengthen muscle resiliency, not giving up, not giving into panic, resiliency to stand and believe, stand and trust, so that the storms don't wear us out. Then when the full force of storms hit us head on, we can stabilize our flight position. We can look straight into the storm, the eye of the storm, and find that place of rest, that place of floating, that place of flying, where we're harnessing that energy. And eyes focusing right into the eye of the storm until we see God, until we find God in the center of that storm. Like those gulls, we too can learn to fly in the winds straight at us, those strong headwinds. Maybe even resting in those storms like those seagulls seem to do, to find a balance, a stability, with barely visible feather movement, but just resting because we've developed those flight skills. Trusting in our ability to fly and in God's ability to teach us how to find Him in the storm. God of wind, of power, teach us how to find You in our storms. Amen.